Okay, we're Positive Vibes Enterprise. I'm Tom Goodwin, and this is Michelle Ronquillo.
Hi, everyone.
And the subject today has to do with reliable sources. And if you have seen any of the politics that's been going on recently, you will see that it's very hard to get reliable sources. And there are a lot of unreliable sources. There are sources where people just pretty well make things up and then they spread it around. So we live in a world in which a lot of people do not respect the truth enough. A lot of people are not unbiased enough to find the truth. We have this sort of extremism on both sides where people want to feel like they're right and they don't pay attention to the other side and they war with the other side. On Facebook, they'll get really angry and friendships will be broken up because they can't handle the fact that somebody's on the other side of an issue and they don't want to deal with the other side. Um, we do not live in a perfect world. We have serious problems, and the reason we have the candidates we have is because they reflect the divisions and the messed up spiritual state our country is in. We get the politicians in leadership that we deserve. We want better politicians. We have to change spiritually.
Yes, and it's important with those resources that you find reliable things and that in the reality of looking and feeling what's wrong with our society, we need to not jump too quickly to judge. We need to really spiritually understand the reality based of both sides.
And that's the thing. You need to look at both sides. And then you also need to look at, you got to use your intuition. That's why you have to train yourself spiritually.
Yes.
Because a lot of times you get on one side and you start reading and it seems a little crazy, a little wild. And then you go to the comment section afterwards.
Yes.
And you get these people that really have negative, hostile attitudes of all sorts, sort of like expressing themselves on those sites. It's those certain sites or certain sources attract certain types of people. And if people are really hostile, they're more likely to demonize a certain section of public or whatever, and tend to support conspiracy theories or whatever that will support their one-sided perspective.
Yes, and when it comes to conspiracy, there is a fine line, people. Please understand this. We know that there is cruel, bad things happening in this world. We know that humans are responsible for a lot of underground things in this world. However, if we jump to unreliable sources, it creates the chaos that we've already seen so much in our society.
And we have the reason we have a trial by jury where we have to really prove that somebody is guilty, because a lot of the times it is. I mean, innocent people get in trouble all the time because people jump to conclusions. It can appear like somebody is doing something when it doesn't. So you have to really strive to get hard fact and not be so quickly to condemn people. And certainly don't be so quick to condemn people just because you disagree with their politics or something.
I think critical thinking is really what we're talking about, getting more involved in your spiritual training, because that really will help you understand what we're talking about, the reliable and not quick to judge. And when you want to get doing something and activating something, your spiritual energy is great as you're training to get into those things. If you want to put those energies out to those things that you want to see the results for, we want to see results, positive results.
And the truth is often in the complicated center, and it's often very hard to figure out.
Yeah.
And that's why it's important to have an open mind and to not have too negative an attitude towards people on the whole spectrum when it comes to how they see the world. because what we
Yes.
want to do spiritually is reach out to people that have, that want to find better answers, whether they're on one extreme or the other. We want them to become more reasonable and rational, and get rid of the emotional baggage they have inside themselves,
Yes.
which is causing them to be drawn to unreliable sources that tend to support the emotional distortions they have in themselves. That's why I'm so much into training oneself spiritually, so that you can sense
Yeah.
pretty much that this source has a spin that's biased one way or the other. And if you're connected with people on the other side, you'll immediately not like the fact that they are making the other side appear a lot worse than they are.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of times the extremes have a distortion, but don't make them more distorted than they are. And of course, the other extreme will try to do that. They'll try to they try to be self-righteous and make the other side um, appear a lot worse than they are. And what we have to understand is how complicated the truth is, and don't think you can get the answers so easily. Don't be so self-righteous.
Yeah.
Reserve judgment a lot of times until more of the facts come in. Because a lot of times what happens in this world is people don't get all the facts. They jump to conclusions. They do something they shouldn't do. They victimize somebody or whatever. And then basically the target they had was not at all, chosen very carefully. And of course, the fact that they victimize it tells you a little bit about the
Yeah.
fact that they have a lot of times violence. In other words, is part of having that
The
self-righteous
chaos
attitude. Is that
and false ego, and not understanding that we need to switch that negative energy into the positive energy and produce more of that. It expands.
because it's almost like in order to when you have baggage or whatever and people and you have a distorted perspective, if somebody goes in up against that distorted perspective, a lot of times what you'll find behind it is a person that will support that perspective with violence.
Yes.
And that's what
The
we want to do.
chaos.
And that's why we so often we have these extreme viewpoints in which they distort the opposite side, and then they go to war and they kill each other. We don't
Yeah.
need any more of that in the world. We have enough of that. That's why reliable sources are so important. Okay, we're going to get rid of the violence. We have to start getting a more clear-headed view of how reality actually
Yes.
works.
And that is definitely important and needed in the spiritual movement. We need clear headed, reality based spirituality that is going outward to mend and find the results and find the new ways, methods, tools, and things that are going to make the society change for a spiritual um, betterment.
And that's why I'm so much into spiritual training and helping people to develop the more strength of character so they can handle the fact that the world does not, that a lot of times the information you get is not that clear, that we live in a complicated world, and that finding answers it's always going to be pretty challenging to the mind.
Yes,
And
critical thinking.
it's all right to be challenged. And it's better to challenge your mind to figure things out than to jump to conclusions and do rash actions, which
Yes,
often happen.
and also following, the game of telephone where you sit around and one thing is said, and then by the time it gets to the around the whole group, it's totally different than what originally was said. So we have to be a spiritual community that literally takes on critical thinking and really knows where the reliable sources are and what we're hearing is amongst the truth of what that reality is saying, that reliable source is saying.
And when our intuition, when we develop it through proper, real good training and having realistic spiritual theories, that intuition will draw us to the right people in
Yes.
our lives, and it will draw us to the right sources of information. So that's why intuition is so important to develop, because it's so often people connect with the wrong people. And if you connect with the wrong people, you automatically are going to connect with sources that aren't that reliable.
Yeah, that's a great point because law of attraction is as well. The more that you are stable and you don't have the chaos inside, you're gonna attract less of that chaos. You're gonna attract more stable spiritual people.
So this is, I think we've covered the subject of reliable sources pretty well. This is Positive Vibes Enterprise.
Yes, leave us messages, comments, and please subscribe. Subscribe.
Subscribe, yes. Thank you very much. I appreciate you taking your time to listen to this video.